When you get into your very first Skylanders game, you are asked a very important question. Are you going to play the good version, the bad version, or do you have a Wii U? The mainline versions of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure have three predominant versions. The original game that was released on the Wii, the X-Spec port made for HD consoles, and then the Wii U version that was published by Square Enix in Japan. All of these versions of the game are technically the same, but they do have a lot of minor variations, all in level design, graphics, and even some minor details when it comes to characters and how they look and play. Like, this is what Spyro looks like in the Wii U version of the game. Why is his face all smoothed out? This isn't even like a glitch. This was like a decision because they also did it to the loading icon. But there were two more versions of the game that were available at launch, which often get forgotten. The PC and Mac versions of the game. Yes, there was a PC version of this game, and it's actually a variation of the X-Spec release. Now, if you do some digging, you can find video footage of the PC version. Heck, you can actually still get the game to run on modern Windows platforms. I tested it on Windows 11 on my desktop and my mini laptop, and the game just runs flawlessly. Minus the times that it crashes, but still, wow, my very first X-Spec experience. I wish I was playing on the Wii version, but I have found nothing on the Mac version of this game that also exists. The Mac port of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure was handled by TransGaming, and on the PC disc box, it states that there is a Mac ROM on the same disc as the PC version. So all I need to do is load up this game disc on a Mac and just try it there. The thing is though, this is a very old app. So not only did we need the appropriate hardware, but we needed a specific type of operating system. Specifically, one that still supported 32-bit apps. Apple dropped support for 32-bit applications a while back in a macOS update. So it's not just a matter of getting an older macOS running. We need to get a very old one running. This took quite a lot of time to figure out, but the setup that worked for me was this 2015 13-inch MacBook Pro. It was the oldest Mac that I had on hand that could not only run 32-bit apps, but also had an old enough USB controller that worked properly with the Portal of Power. Every other Mac I tried had some sort of weird USB issue that prevented me from playing the game. Skylanders on the Mac is also an X-Spec version of the game, but this time, they put it in a blender. There are so many weird things about the Mac version that are different. For starters, the way the environment gets rendered is very different than any other X-Spec version out there. It seems like bloom is off, and some characters actually just have different lighting altogether. Like, for example, Spyro is just constantly in this shadow and I don't know why. Like, lighting just does not get applied to him specifically. Some enemies have missing assets, especially these Dro spearmen who now have no eyes. Some environments also have differences in the way the game are rendered. For example, the ruins, the main hub of the game, just doesn't produce shadows at all whatsoever. This is particularly significant because usually the lighting of the ruins mirrors the graphic settings you have applied to the game. Low or high graphics and lighting. Those are the only two options, by the way. But no, in the Mac version, they just force shadow lighting off completely. Maybe this would have been something that was changed if I was running on something more powerful. I am running on a laptop with Intel integrated graphics, but no, super low graphics mode for me. Because this is a very weird port in nature, the game can be a little unstable on lower end hardware. The computer from time to time would just like lose connection of the portal and unsummon Skylanders or mix them up, especially on more taxing parts of the levels in the game. This is actually an issue that can happen in any version of the game. I actually encountered into a similar issue when I was trying to load up the game in Dolphin and I wasn't setting the CPU clock correctly for a 60 FPS patch I was adding. So this isn't necessarily the port's problem, but it's more so the port is doing so much work translating that there is trouble getting the rest of the game to run, and thus these disconnects happen. And it happens a lot on this version and can basically happen at any given moment. And multiple times too. I've had it where a Skylander gets desummoned for like a whole minute and it just keeps on getting summoned back in and taken out over and over again. This game does support controllers like the PC version, but it's also somehow messed up. So like our primary attack is the A button, that's fine. All of our other face buttons are your third attack, and then the minus or select button is your secondary attack. Excuse me? I don't know if this is some weird porting issue or if this is just the fact that X input I don't think was supported in this version of macOS. But like, this is quite possibly the worst Skylanders experience on a controller that I have ever experienced. And I had to play Skylanders Swap Force on the Wii. I just opted to play the game with a mouse and keyboard. Or actually, trackpad, I should say. And this is just awful. My default attack is a 2-fingered press. Who plays like this? Well, me apparently, because the trackpad method on Mac was the primary way I played with it. Out of all of the bad methods, I just chugged through with this one. Overall, I think this game is fine. It's the worst way to play Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, and that's on top of the fact that it's a port of the X-Spec version of the game. I paid over $100 to try this version of the game, and if you just want to play Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, there are way better options. But I mean, it's still Skylanders. I love gaming on a Mac, so it's really cool that I was able to try this. But what's more interesting is how this game even came to be. Under the hood, the game is very interesting because this game actually uses Securom. Securom is a super old DRM that wouldn't let you play games unless you had the original disc inserted into the PC. Securom, by the way, did not exist on macOS, but Securom just works here. For those unaware, the most common way to get a Windows app to work on macOS or Linux is through a translation layer called Wine. You might have heard of Proton on Linux and being used on devices like the Steam Deck. That's basically just like a newer version of Wine, and this is like the same thing kinda. This port is essentially a modified version of the PC release in a Wine wrapper, but this Wine version is a special fork made by TransGaming called Cider, which was specifically used for Securom titles that they ported to Mac. This was their specialty, as they offered these solutions to companies directly and even made other porting products, like ones to port Securom games to Linux as well. They are basically like the Nixies of today. Funny enough, upon doing research for this video, I discovered that they also did the Mac port of Lego Universe, another game I played on Mac around the same time as this one, and now looking back, I definitely remember the performance being about the same across the two titles. And now in the day and age of 2026, TransGaming is a real estate company for some reason. Geez, talk about transition. They changed their entire business? They're now called FinDev and do real estate in the Toronto area. They stopped doing game ports in 2015, with their last port being Nancy Drew Sea of Darkness, and they sold all their stuff including Cider to Nvidia. Well, that blows. Skylanders never did another Mac or even a PC port of their games ever again. All future mainline games were released on primarily console platforms, with the exception of Trap Team and Superchargers making their way over to mobile devices. Actually, Skylanders became more associated with Apple products later in life because Apple would sell Skylanders mobile starter packs in their stores. Superchargers even came to the Apple TV of all things, and you can still play that version to this day if you finagle it a bit. Maybe I will visit that title in a future video topic. Like and subscribe and hype the video if you want to see that. Nowadays, if you want to play Skylanders on PC, it's much easier and honestly better to just emulate the games. But this was definitely a cool look into this kind of alternate reality where Skylanders was a PC game. Thank you guys for watching. Till next time.